All right, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, we're going to take a look at this F91W as a mod. And of course, as I said before, it's a simple mod, right? We're just going to do a polarized film swap. I'm actually going to do a negative blue for this, but I'll be honest with you guys, I went into this modification very confident because I did modify the Casio Royale a couple of times, whether it be the 12 or 1300, and I was thinking it was going to be very similar, and it was, and it actually was less pieces to take apart, but I did get humbled by making a mistake on the display screen, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's disassemble. Of course, we're just taking off the straps, pushing those, in the direction that's indicated on the band. And then we just have the watch itself, and I'm cleaning this very vigilantly. It's something that I do before doing any kind of mod. I want to make sure I get off any dust as far as it goes. So you'll see me wiping it down, with the rag, or with the fiber cloth rather, and the blower, and now I'm using some Rodicos. So I'm always going to make sure I can get as least dust particles or dirt or anything like that. I don't obviously have a controlled environment. I'm just doing this on a computer desk where I have all of my tools and everything else. So first thing is first, take off the screws. I usually put that in a little, container, as you guys can see. Now I have a mat that has sections on it, which you can put different parts, but I think that putting these into a, somewhat of a container is pretty important, because I often use the blower and sometimes you'll just forget, and even though they're in the little notches, they could get blown off. So I like to take extra precaution by putting them in a little case there, as you guys can see. And then of course, we're going to keep everything to the side, and I like to keep everything nice and neat and in order, so like that when we have to reassemble, we're not fishing for parts or trying to remember what part goes where. Taking the module out now, I'm kind of going a little slow if you guys don't notice, and that's because I'm taking a look at this for the first time and I'm seeing the gasket here. Now, I don't remove the gasket first when I took it out thinking that I can get away with it, and that's a mistake, because as I learned later on when trying to put that module back, it was offering resistance to the module into the case. So definitely take that gasket out. And if you have a grease, put some more grease on there as well, just to keep it a little bit more waterproof. But let's take a look at this. And again, I'm more inspecting it as I go along, just to eyeball and make sure that, I can recognize to see and make sure that the disassembly is going to be the same. And it really is. The first thing you're going to do when you take that module out is remove the small clips here. And I'm using a hand remover. They're very solid. They're very a thick piece of steel, thick piece of metal, so they offer no resistance. I tried using my tweezers, but the tweezers are very fine at the very point of them and they start to bend. So it's better to have something with more structure and more solid, structure to it. So I ended up grabbing these hand removers to do so. And be gentle with these guys. You don't want to offer too much strength when you're removing these clips and then end up bending them so they can't bend back, or at least you'll have to bend them back and it just won't clip the same. So, take your time, be very gentle, kind of just coax it out of that little lip that it folds over. And that's that. So after taking off this metal clip here, we have a battery exposed. Now that battery is like adhered with adhesive to the back of it. Not very strong, because obviously they know you have to change the battery, but I just look things over and I see that it's not really necessary for me to take the battery apart. So eventually you're going to see me just lift up the module with it as far as it goes. And of course, again, being gentle, putting that to the side, trying to remember the order of operation by being neat and organized as far as it goes. And then we have a piece here that is going to help secure the screen. And I forget, somebody told me what this actually was for, and I just don't remember exactly what it is for. But unlike the Casio Royale, there's two, and I only noticed one, so that's that. And then there's a little hole on the bottom of one of the clips for the LCD screen, which you saw me put the tweezers in and just kind of like pull down on. Be very gentle with that tab. That tab will break on the bottom, so I have experience breaking that on a Casio Royale, so I was very gentle. Just taking a look and seeing what goes up and down. With the screen, you saw a white film on the back of it that I also removed. And now we're pretty much at the screen now, and I'm seeing what it looks like front and back, so like that I can kind of recognize it. There's three parts to this. There is the polarized film on the front, there's the actual screen, and then there's a piece on the back that's kind of reflective. So That's how you know what's front and back. And then of course I'm feeling for that little lip for the polarized film that I got to get underneath, which I'm going to be using a scalpel to get under there, guys. Now, again, I said this last time, do as I say, not as I do. This is a improper way to position your fingers. If that scalpel had slipped, it would have went into my finger. So you kind of want to curl your finger down so your nail is only facing the blade. This way, if you do slip, you're only hitting your nail and you're not hitting flesh. So just another case of do as I say and not as I do. And now I only use that scalpel just to get the edging removed, and then I use a pick here that came with a glue gun to get underneath it and remove the rest. I really don't want to offer a chance to scratch the screen with the scalpel at any point, so I'm not going to use it to remove the whole thing. I am going to get a pick here, and that's something for you guys to utilize. You know, get yourself a pick. Mine came with the glue gun, and that's what I'm using here. And then we're gently prying up that polarized film, right? So you're not going to just shove that pick and offer too much strength. You barely want to be, you know, holding down that screen. You know, the last thing you want to do is for either the pressure of your fingers or the pressure of that pick cracking that screen. So be very gentle with this. And that screen is actually smaller than the AE1200, so you want to be extra gentle as far as that goes. Now we got some glue gun that we're going to use to remove some of the residue that is extra on top of it. You don't need a whole lot. Even if you were doing a bigger screen, I would say start off with the smaller amount and then work your way. And then I do remove all the glue there, so now I'm using alcohol. And as you see, I only dab the alcohol and then I use the dry side to get rid of the rest of the glue. I mean, I don't find it necessary to use too much chemicals or overdoing it. And it's something that I would recommend as well. Just give it a little dab as you saw there with the alcohol. Finish off the rest as far as like whatever's left over, because you'll get most of the glue off with the glue gun, but then you'll get those streaks on the screen and you want that to be crystal clear for the mod moving forward. So that is that. I have that cleaned off, and now I'm just going to reassemble it because I don't like to put the polarized film directly onto the screen. What I like to do is I like to put it on the inside of the case where the screen protector is, or where the crystal is rather. So here I'm just looking to see what side is up and down. You might want to pay attention to when you put that down, whether or not you're right side up or whatever. But you can, even when you remove the polarized film and you're in extreme light, you could kind of make out the numbers and or look for like the date and the day on the top where it would be displayed. You could kind of see it in highlights, so you could figure it out. And of course we're putting that white film on the back of it again. You know, that just was sitting, you know, flush in the back of the screen. So of course we're going to put that there first, and then we're going to offer the LCD screen into the module, or the module casing at least, and, you know, follow the order of operations at that point. So I'm being very gentle here, as you can see. I could have just used my finger just to shove it in and stuff like that, but you know, everything is so small in the F91W especially, and I have the tendency of using more force than I need to, so I rather be very gentle here. I believe I pulled down on the tab as well to lock it in, or maybe it slipped in on its own. Nope. So there's this little circle. It's hard to see on camera, but there's a little circle there where I could get the tweezer inside the hole and then just gently pull down to create a bigger space than what the LCD screen is. And then once you slip the LCD screen in, it'll reform itself and lock it into place. So flipping it over, of course, we're gonna put that piece back in. Again, I can't remember. Memory doesn't serve me best. I can't remember. Somebody told me in one of my builds of the Casio what that was exactly for. But you're gonna need it, so put it back. I mean, whatever you take out of the module, you're gonna want to put back, right? That's just how it goes. And then, like I said, on this one, it's only one. On the AE 1200, 1300, and I think it's the 1600 for the Casio Royale series, there's two, one shorter than the other, so a little bit easier to remember when it's just one long piece, and that goes right in. Now we're going to offer the actual chip, the actual module to go in there, and then I'm just trying to notice what is right side up again, and I'm looking for a place to show you guys. So there's actual holes on the bottom and top of the module that coincide with how it secures into there. I believe they're of different distances, so you can kind of tell, okay, this is a wider gap, this is a shorter gap. Of course, I'm realizing that the battery needs to face me, so I flip it over, and then I offer the module into its perspective hole and everything else. And then of course you want to push it down, right? Because it's kind of like little tiny pillars that stick up that go through it to secure it. But again, we're not pushing it down with a lot of strength here. We're gently pushing it down. You know, you just want to make sure it feeds through properly, because everything is going to make contact with each other in order to make it work, in order to make the watch function. So, you know, you do want it to be snug, but you don't want to offer too much strength on it. Now I'm showing you top and bottom of this. There's a tab on the bottom that goes to the free space at the 6 o'clock, and at the 12 o'clock there's another tab that you can pull up on, both making contact with each other and also to the case. So that's how I figure out that. And then we just clip it back on. And again, very gently, I'm pushing them down so they reclip, which shouldn't be an issue so long as, like I said in the beginning, you know, you're not forcing those metal tabs to, you know, change the structure and then change the resistance as far as it goes. And they should just snap into place nice and easily. So all that's done. We have the rebuild pretty much set and go, making sure the battery is functioning. And then we're just doing the orientation for that polarized film that I'm putting on there. So this is pretty cool. I'm doing a negative display. I rather like that. I do like the positive display with like blue numbers and letters, but it's not as noticeable. And I really wanted to show that there has been a change to the watch. That's just me, and blue is my favorite color, so having a blue display is something nice. And just so you guys know, you know, when you do negative display, it makes it slightly harder in some orientation of light to see it. So that's the trade-off. Of course, after orientating that polarized film, I keep it over the screen as you saw, just to do the marking for it around. Now we're cutting it out, and you want it to be bigger than the display screen that you're cutting out, because when you adhere this to the case or to the back of the crystal on the inside rather, you know, you're not having any gaps that are showing once that's completed and once you offer the module to the case. So it's pretty easy. There's a lot of space on the inside of that case to make that happen. So that's just my, you know, tip as far as it goes. And then double, triple, you know, quadruple checking to make sure A, your orientation is correct, and then B, once you place that polarized film down, you know, you're right side up, you have to put it right side down when you're putting it down, because as far as how you're going to put the module in there, you know, it all makes sense, right? So that's how it's going to be when it's facing up, so I have to flip it over to face it down, if you will. And then putting it inside the case, making sure that that sits correctly. You know, just because it's bigger than the LCD screen and it covers all of that, you want to make sure that it's going to sit or at least fit inside of the casing as far as it goes. Now, this is where we start to tread into, you know, deeper waters. I thought I was at the home stretch, and I'll explain to you guys what goes on, but I'm just, you know, making sure that that fits correctly. Peeling off the clear film. There's clear film on both sides of the polarized film. Do you have to remove it? No, you could adhere it in other ways, but just keep in mind that there is a side of this polarized film from the one that I got that's sticky. So it is going to stick face down to that crystal as far as it goes. And, you know, that makes it somewhat easier because you don't need an additional adhesive as far as it goes. And that's what I originally, you know, wanted to do. That's how I wanted to go about it. So I removed the back of it, I remove the front of it, and then I stick it down. And then I'm just checking here to make sure everything is going to be all said and done. But this is what I noticed. It had a marking in it that just wouldn't come out. That just came off of the adhesive. Is probably the way that I stored it. And as you see, left to right, and it's a big streak, and I'm not happy with that. Obviously, it's going to be very visible when wearing the watch, and you know how we watch collectors are, man. And, you know, if we see one dust particle, we're like, we notice, right? So I'm doing my best to actually press that down with a Q-tip. I'm thinking that it's just giving that line, and it almost, it improves. It gets, you know, a little bit better, but it's still there, as you can see. And I want it to be flush. It is an adhesive, so I'm thinking maybe I just have to push it down a little bit more. But then I get the thought, let me get some alcohol and let me rub that down on the back. And this was the end result to that, guys. So what happened there is that there's actual ink sitting in the back of the crystal onto the screen. And if you rub any alcohol, glue gun, or nail polish remover, if you will, I don't know why you would use nail polish remover, but if you do, you're going to actually remove the film that's showing you the wording on the front of the crystal. So do not do that. Once you set your polarized film down onto the screen, if you choose to do it that way and not put it onto the LCD screen directly, be even careful just cleaning it, you know, just with a dry Q-tip, right? Like at the end of the day, you may rub off some material as far as it goes. So I actually had to scrap that entirely. I purchased another F91W to complete the mod, and lesson learned, right? And again, you still see the gasket in there. And this time I kind of knew that I had to remove it, but I still left it in there for waiting for me to have to reassemble, and then I'm going to remove it. And another issue that I had here was the polarized film on the edging. Just, I don't know what happened. I don't know if there's a difference in spacing because of that, you know, ink film that they have on the crystal is just allowing for it to be a little bit raised, or whatever the case may be. It ended up having like a small glaze around the corners of it. So as you can see here, I'm using plastic to push that down. I'm minding myself as far as not going over the ink part of it to scratch it off and everything else. And it did improve. It's not perfect. In hindsight, I maybe would have just used an adhesive and left the clear plastic on the side that's sticky and just use the adhesive to get it on the case, perhaps making it more even and more flush so you don't see that glaze. Almost like lifting it off by, I don't know, 0.01 millimeters of space, but I do get it down. It's a lot clearer than it was in the prior mistake that I made, and I decided that I was happy with that. That was enough for me. So time to remove the gasket to get the module in, and then of course we're going to put some silicone grease on there just to make it more efficient. But first, let me put this in here so like that I don't have to worry about dust, right? When you're dealing with the case, when you're dealing with the screen, you want to clean both off before you make the two meet, because otherwise you're taking the watch back apart once you notice that there's dust. So do yourself a favor, before you offer the module to the case, and it doesn't matter even if you're doing a mechanical watch, it's all the same thing, you know, you just don't want to have to go back in there, and you know, you do the best you can. At the end of the day, sometimes you notice it after, or a piece of lint moves from the case that you didn't see before, whatever the case may be. So we get it into place, pushing the buttons outward before putting that module in, and then just gently hitting the corners to make everything flush. Again, we're being gentle. And once I get the module in, and I'm happy with the positioning of it, we're checking, making sure that the buttons function with each other, making sure that they are corresponding with each other just fine. You know, again, that's just another check that you want to do. Here comes the silicone grease that we're going to add to the gasket just to make it a little bit more waterproof, A. And B, it's going to last longer, right? That naturally deteriorates over time. And that's just from drying out and dealing with hot, cold temperatures back and forth. So you want to make sure you grease that up just for longevity and for water seal and everything else. So effectively, this is only 30 meters of water resistance in the F91W, and they only advertise it as splash proof. But I would imagine if you're going into this watch and you're doing everything properly, you're going to make sure that you get those 30 meters of water resistance, and you should be okay jumping in the pool, doing some light aquatic activities with it, you know, showering, whatever the case may be. But, you know, it's up to you guys. You know, it's at the owner's will at that point, because they are advertising it as far as it goes to be splash proof. Now, I'm just tapping the gaskets here. You want to make sure that's flush. That's pretty important. No matter what watch you're putting together as far as the back gasket goes, you don't want it to get pinched. You don't want it to shift. Why? Because then you're going to create a space on the corner of the case back where water will find its way if you decide to submerge it. Making sure that that sits nice and flush is pretty important. And taking your time, you know, as you can see, I'm tapping that in. Now, this is a little technique that I like to use. I open up the tweezers and then I just tap it on the two sides because when you tap a side of it, what happens is that the other side responds sometimes and it'll shift very, very small, very marginally. But you want to pay mind to that for the reason I said before. So I've developed a little bit of a technique where I open up the tweezers and I kind of get two sides and I cover more grounds and put that down flush nice and evenly. So that's done. Now I'm ready for the case back. Of course, just make sure it's I don't know if it matters if you put it upside down, but you know me, like I'd rather it be right side up. I'm pretty sure you guys would too. So just check that. Now the screws go in. I'm fast forwarding this because you guys know what that looks like. Don't secure the first one. I don't know if I did that or not, but don't secure the first one all the way down. Kind of halfway screw it in and then screw them in evenly after all they're in position, just to make everything come down nice and flush. And then that's it, man. Clean it off, show it off. And I'm, I'm pretty happy with this display. You could do this in any polarized film color that you want to. You know, I debated if I wanted to do red because there are some red markers on the bottom, red letters rather. But blue colorway is what this watch really eye-catching for. So I thought a blue screen would be a little bit more fitting as far as it goes. So let's take a look at it on wrist. And I have a 7¼ inch wrist, 45 to 46 millimeter from bone to bone wrist width. And it's a handsome watch. I absolutely love it. With the polarized film, it looks fantastic. And I actually have another one that is factory that I'm debating if whether or not I want to do it a different way. Like I said, in hindsight, I maybe have used like a double-sided tape to adhere that screen and avoid that hazing that I have. We'll see. Maybe I'll do a red screen. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Should I do another one? Should I try to attempt to make it perfect on the next one, or do like a red and blue kind of colorway? You let me know, guys. I hope you enjoyed the quick video of a quick mod for this legendary watch. As always, thank you for coming in. I do appreciate it. And of course, our slogan, it all started with an affordable legendary watch. No matter where your watch journey takes you, no matter how you decide to collect, you guys are all welcome on this channel. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.